You don't even believe your own attacks. You admit I'm qualified, you admit you agree with my positions, and you admit that calling me dangerous is just theater for your political brand. Silence. Not a single breath in the Georgetown debate hall. Barron Trump, yes, that Barron Trump, stood frozen, his face pale, his 6'8" frame suddenly shrinking under the weight of his own words. Just moments before, he'd been towering, cocky, hurling accusations at Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, calling her fundamentally unfit and a danger to our democracy. But now, he looked like a kid caught cheating on the biggest test of his life, and it was all because of one recording. One bombshell audio clip that turned the tables, shattered reputations, and sent shockwaves through every corner of American politics. This wasn't just a debate gone wrong. This was a public demolition, a savage reckoning that left the so-called heir to the Trump dynasty utterly exposed and humiliated. Phones were out, cameras were rolling, social media was already on fire. For the first time ever, Barron Trump had no comeback. How did we get here? How did an arrogant political prince get destroyed by a congresswoman who refused to play by the rules? And what does this moment mean for the future of power in America? If you think the truth deserves to be heard, if you want to see how the mighty can fall, smash that like button right now and subscribe. Because what happened next will leave you absolutely stunned. You won't believe how fast everything unraveled. Trust me, you do not want to miss a second of this demolition. Stick around because we're about to rewind and show you exactly how Barron Trump's carefully crafted image imploded in front of a live audience, and millions more online. This is the kind of political reckoning they'll be teaching in textbooks for decades. Ready? Let's go. Let's set the stage for the most shocking political confrontation of the year. Picture this: the debate hall at Georgetown University, buzzing with anticipation. Every seat packed, students, professors, reporters, cameras everywhere. What started as a routine discussion about youth engagement in politics was about to become a battleground where legacies would be made or destroyed. On one side, Barron Trump, 18 years old but already a legend on campus, the youngest son of Donald Trump, stepping into the spotlight not as a reality TV sideshow, but as a supposed intellectual prodigy. Towering at nearly 6'8", Barron cut an imposing figure. Navy blazer crisp, hair perfectly styled, eyes scanning the room with calculated confidence. While his siblings dove straight into business and branding, Barron chose academia, political science, constitutional law. Professors whispered that he was frighteningly intelligent. Students called him the giant, not just for his height, but for the way he dominated every argument. Never lost a debate. Never flinched under pressure. Since his arrival, the Young Republicans Club tripled in size. Some even dared to whisper, he could be president one day. Tonight was supposed to be his coronation, his coming out party. The night the Trump legacy revealed its new champion. Across from him, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, 43 years old, representing Texas's 30th district. A former civil rights attorney, Crockett was famous for slicing through hypocrisy in congressional hearings, going viral for her fearless, razor-sharp questioning. She grew up in St. Louis, fought her way through law school, and built a reputation as one of the most principled fighters in Washington. Calm, strategic, courageous, and with a sense of justice that made even her opponents sweat. Her mission? To expose the cynicism poisoning American politics and to show young people what real leadership looks like. But tonight, nobody expected fireworks. This was supposed to be a polite academic exchange. Two generations, two Americas colliding on stage. The scion of the Trump dynasty versus the progressive movement's rising star. The topic: how to engage Generation Z in American politics. The format: a 45-minute discussion moderated by Dr. Sarah Martinez, chair of Georgetown's Political Science Department, 200 students, faculty, and local media in the audience. C-SPAN broadcasting live, Twitter already buzzing with anticipation. For Barron, this was the moment to prove he belonged on the national stage, not just as his father's son, but as a force in his own right. For Crockett, it was a chance to mentor young minds and defend authentic engagement in a world obsessed with optics. Neither of them knew they were about to create one of the most viral political moments of the decade. As Dr. Martinez introduced both speakers, you could feel the electricity in the air. This was Barron Trump's first time facing public scrutiny as an adult. For Jasmine Crockett, it was her first time debating a member of the Trump family. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. From the very first question, you could tell this wasn't going to be business as usual. The stakes? Everything. The Trump legacy trying to establish its next generation leader. The progressive movement fighting to prove that courage and authenticity still matter. Who would come out on top? Drop a comment below. Whose side are you on so far? Team Barron or Team Crockett? And if you think this is just getting started, hit that like button. Because trust me, the gloves are about to come off. Dr. Martinez opened with a simple question: how can we better engage young Americans in the political process? Jasmine Crockett spoke first. Calm, measured, professional. She talked about voter registration drives, civic education, and the importance of authentic representation. Her response was thoughtful, direct, and well received by the audience. No theatrics, just substance. Then it was Barron's turn. He leaned forward, voice dripping with confidence. Thank you, Dr. Martinez. I think Congresswoman Crockett raises interesting points, but I have to question whether she's the right person to guide America's youth. A ripple went through the audience. Phones came out. This wasn't the respectful debate they'd expected. Barron pressed on, his words sharpened to cut deep. Congresswoman Crockett represents everything wrong with modern politics. She's more focused on viral moments and social media clips than actual governance. Her committee performances are theater, not substance. Students started whispering. Some grinned, others winced. Crockett raised an eyebrow, unfazed. Barron doubled down. Her voting record shows a pattern of partisan extremism that alienates moderate Americans. How can someone so divisive claim to represent unity? Crockett leaned forward, voice steady but with a blade's edge. Mr. Trump, I appreciate your passionate perspective, but perhaps before questioning my fitness for office, you should examine the record of your own family's political contributions. The room tensed. Barron's jaw tightened, the first crack in his polished armor. My family's record speaks for itself, Congresswoman. We've actually accomplished things in office, not just performed for cameras. Crockett's tone rose, slicing through the air. Accomplished things? Like the January 6th insurrection? Like attempting to overturn a legitimate election? Like multiple indictments? That's when Barron snapped. He stood looming over everyone, channeling the full force of his lineage. Congresswoman Crockett, let me be very clear. Your grandstanding might play well on Twitter, but it doesn't change the fact that you are fundamentally unfit to hold office, let alone guide America's youth. Your radical agenda, your inflammatory rhetoric, your complete disregard for constitutional principles, all of it makes you a danger to our democracy. The word unfit hung in the air like a thunderclap. Gasps echoed. Even the moderator looked stunned. This had gone from debate to character assassination in seconds. Crockett sat quietly, unreadable. Then, with chilling calm, she reached for her phone. Mr. Trump, she said, voice deadly calm, before we continue this conversation about who's unfit for what, I think this audience needs to hear something. She held up her phone, finger hovering over the play button. This is a recording from 3 weeks ago. I think it's very relevant to our discussion about fitness for political engagement. The room held its breath. Barron's confident mask flickered. What are you doing? He asked, voice losing its edge. Crockett looked straight at him, then at the cameras. I'm about to play a recording that shows exactly what kind of political engagement you've been participating in behind closed doors. She pressed play. Crystal clear audio filled the room. Barron's unmistakable voice rang out. Look, I don't actually believe half the stuff I say in these debates. It's all about positioning for the future. These Georgetown kids eat up the constitutional law stuff, but it's just theater. Dad taught me, you say whatever gets you power, then you do whatever you want with it. A second unfamiliar voice asked, but what about your actual positions? What do you really believe? Barron replied, honestly, I think Dad went too far with a lot of stuff. The election fraud claims, January 6th, that was a disaster. But I can't say that publicly. The base would destroy me. So I play the part, build my brand, and eventually I'll pivot to something more moderate when the time is right. You could hear people's shocked breathing. The recording kept playing. And these people I debate with, like this Crockett woman, she's actually pretty smart. Her positions aren't that radical if you really examine them, but calling her unfit and dangerous plays well with our crowd. It's all about the optics. So you're saying you don't believe what you're saying about her? Barron. Of course not. She's probably more qualified than half the Republicans in Congress. But admitting that doesn't help me build my political future. You have to understand, politics isn't about truth. It's about narrative. And the Trump narrative requires enemies. And then, the most devastating blow. The funny thing is, I agree with Crockett on a lot of issues. Climate change, criminal justice reform, even some of her economic policies. But I'll stand up there and call her a radical extremist because that's what my audience wants to hear. That's how you build a following in today's politics. You tell people what they want to hear, not what's actually true. The recording ended. Silence. Deafening silence. For the first time since entering Georgetown, Barron Trump looked genuinely rattled. His face pale, his posture crumbled. The confident giant now looked like a child caught in a lie. That recording, he stammered, his debate persona shattered. Crockett finished calmly. It's from a conversation you had 3 weeks ago with a Georgetown journalism student, a student who felt the public had a right to know who you really are behind the political theater. She stood up. Suddenly her presence filled the room. The height difference didn't matter anymore. Mr. Trump, you just called me unfit for office. You questioned my qualifications, my integrity, my ability to guide young Americans. But this recording shows that you don't even believe your own attacks. You admit I'm qualified. You admit you agree with my positions. You admit that calling me dangerous is just theater for your political brand. The audience was riveted. Phones captured every angle of Barron's collapse. So let me ask you this, Crockett continued, voice building with righteous anger. Who's really unfit here? Is it the Congresswoman fighting for her constituents, working on legislation, speaking her truth? Or is it the young man who admits to lying about his positions, manipulating his audience, and building his entire political persona on deception? Barron tried to respond, but nothing came out. You talk about constitutional principles, Mr. Trump, but the foundation of our democracy is honest discourse. It's representatives who actually believe in what they're fighting for. It's leaders who don't see politics as theater and voters as an audience to manipulate. Murmurs of shock and disappointment swept the room. Barron finally managed, I didn't mean. You didn't mean for people to hear your real thoughts? Crockett pressed. You didn't mean for your constituents, because that's what these students are, future constituents. To know that you see them as marks to be conned rather than citizens to be served? She turned to the C-SPAN cameras. This is exactly what's wrong with American politics. We have young people entering the arena who see public service as performance art, who think leadership is about saying whatever gets you power, regardless of truth or consequence. She turned back to Barron. You want to talk about unfitness? Let's talk about a political candidate who admits to lying to voters, who builds their brand on manufactured outrage, and who sees democracy as a game to be won rather than a trust to be honored. The room erupted in applause, not polite clapping, but real, sustained applause from students who knew they'd witnessed something historic. Barron Trump, for the first time in his life, was utterly destroyed. If you think this was the most savage takedown you've ever seen, hit that like button and share this video. Because what happened next? The world watched, and the internet exploded. Let's freeze frame the exact moment everything changed. Barron Trump, the so-called political prodigy, was reduced to silence. His hands trembled as he fumbled with his notes. His signature smirk vanished. His eyes darted, searching for an escape route that didn't exist. The audience stared, wide-eyed, as the magnitude of the revelation sank in. Crockett didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Her calm, relentless exposure was more brutal than any insult. She stood tall, voice unwavering, as she delivered the final blows, not just to Barron's ego, but to the entire myth of Trumpian invincibility. The moderator, Dr. Martinez, struggled to restore order. Reporters surged forward, shouting questions. Barron, still visibly shaken, gathered his materials and muttered, "No questions?" as his security detail hustled him out a side door. Gone was the confident young man who had commanded every room for the past year. In his place stood someone who looked much younger than his 18 years, overwhelmed, defeated, and humiliated. Students clustered in groups, animatedly discussing what they'd just witnessed. Many were already posting clips to social media, capturing every angle of Barron's stunned expression and Crockett's triumphant moment. The energy in the auditorium was electric, a mix of disbelief, excitement, and a sense that history had just been made. Within minutes, the hashtag #NosherBarronExposed began trending on Twitter. The most viral clip? The exact moment Crockett played the recording, zooming in on Barron's face as his own words contradicted everything he just said. The video was shared over 100,000 times in the first hour alone. Conservative Twitter was in chaos. Barron's die-hard supporters were furious, betrayed. Barron Trump 2024 just lost all credibility. How can you build a movement on lies? We thought Barron was different. Turns out he's just another political opportunist. Some deleted their fan accounts in disgust. Liberal Twitter, meanwhile, was celebrating. Jasmine Crockett just delivered the most devastating political exposure I've ever seen. That recording was perfect timing. Barron Trump called her unfit, and she proved he's the one who's unfit. This is how you handle a bully. Watch and learn. By the next morning, every major news network was looping the footage. CNN led with Georgetown debate shocker, recording exposes Barron Trump's private views. Their analysts called it a stunning fall from grace for the Trump dynasty's future. MSNBC ran multiple segments dissecting the implications. Here's a young man admitting he doesn't believe his own positions. He's just saying what he thinks will build his brand. Fox News? They struggled to defend Barron without alienating their base. Their coverage was muted, awkward, almost embarrassed. On campus, the fallout was immediate. Students who'd flocked to Barron's Young Republicans meetings began to vanish. Membership dropped by 60% in a week. "I felt betrayed," said Sarah Chen, a sophomore and former supporter. "I actually changed some of my views because his arguments seemed so compelling. Now I find out he didn't even believe what he was saying." Professors weighed in. "Academic integrity is fundamental," said Michael Roberts, who taught Barron's constitutional law class. "The idea that a student would engage in public discourse while privately admitting to manipulation and deception is deeply troubling." Georgetown's administration couldn't ignore the controversy. While they couldn't punish Barron for his political views, the recording raised serious questions about honesty and character. 3 days after the debate, Barron released a carefully crafted statement through his lawyer. The recording played by Congresswoman Crockett was taken out of context and represents a private conversation recorded without my knowledge or consent. "My political positions are sincerely held, and I stand by my critique of Congresswoman Crockett's record. This attack on my character is exactly the kind of political theater I've been working to reform. But the damage was done. Social media users roasted him for complaining about political theater after being caught admitting his own act was pure theater." Jasmine Crockett, meanwhile, seized the moment. In interviews, she hammered home the importance of authentic leadership. "This wasn't about destroying a young man," she told CNN. "This was about exposing the cynical manipulation that too often passes for political discourse. Voters deserve leaders who actually believe in what they're fighting for." Her congressional office reported a 400% increase in donations that week. Her social media following exploded by over 200,000. Democratic leadership started talking about her as a rising national star. Political analysts pounced. The recording exposed what many suspected but rarely saw proven, that some politicians view their positions as strategic choices, not principled stands, said Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a political scientist at American University. "When young people see political leadership as performance art, it undermines the entire democratic process." Conservative commentators were shell-shocked. Many had invested heavily in the idea that Barron represented a more intellectual, principled version of Trump politics. The recording shattered that illusion. Perhaps most telling, the Trump family's response. Donald Trump, usually quick to defend his children, posted only a brief statement. Barron is young and learning. Fake news media loves to attack my family. No all-caps tirade, no threats, just silence. Proof of how damaging the scandal truly was. 6 months later, the effects still rippled. Barron Trump vanished from public political life. His planned spring semester course on conservative philosophy was quietly canceled due to lack of interest. Students reported he'd become withdrawn, no longer dominating discussions. The once confident prodigy now looked like someone reconsidering everything. Meanwhile, the confrontation became a case study in political authenticity. Crockett's victory wasn't just about having dirt. It was about using it strategically to make a larger point about integrity. If you think the internet's reaction was justified, smash that like button. And tell us in the comments, was Barron's exposure fair, or did it go too far? The digital world didn't just react, it detonated. Within minutes of the debate's end, the hashtag #NashShashJoggerBarron exposed shot to the top of Twitter's trending topics, not just nationally, but globally. TikTok was flooded with edits of Barron's meltdown, set to dramatic music, with captions like, "When the mask slips," and "This is what happens when you get caught lying on live TV." Memes comparing Barron to cartoon villains, GIFs of jaws dropping, and side-by-side videos of Crockett's calm versus Barron's unraveling dominated Instagram and Snapchat. On Reddit, threads analyzing every micro-expression, every nervous twitch, and every word of the bombshell recording climbed to the front page. "Is this the most brutal political self-destruction ever?" one user asked. Another replied, "He got exposed, humiliated, and demolished in less than 5 minutes." Unbelievable. Twitter was a war zone. Conservative influencers scrambled to contain the fallout. Some tried to spin it as a deep state setup, but even loyalists couldn't explain away Barron's own voice, admitting it was all theater. Others simply abandoned ship, deleting pro-Barron tweets and switching allegiances overnight. Liberal and progressive accounts, meanwhile, celebrated Crockett's masterclass in political combat. "This is how you handle a bully," trended alongside Monsieur Barron exposed. Clips of Crockett's takedown racked up millions of views. Celebrities joined in, actors, musicians, athletes, praising Crockett for standing her ground and exposing the hypocrisy at the heart of American politics. Cable news went wall-to-wall. CNN replayed the confrontation on loop, inviting body language experts, political strategists, and ethics professors to dissect every moment. "This is a generational reckoning," declared one panelist. "The Trump brand has never suffered a public implosion like this." MSNBC ran primetime specials. "The end of the Trump myth?" Hosts marveled at Crockett's composure and surgical precision. She didn't just defeat him, she obliterated the whole facade. Fox News was paralyzed. Anchors stumbled through segments, unsure whether to defend Barron or distance themselves. Some tried to blame liberal media manipulation, but the raw audio was impossible to spin. The usual firestorm of outrage was replaced by awkward silence and half-hearted attempts at damage control. Podcasts and YouTube channels across the spectrum weighed in. Political comedians mocked Barron's performance art confession. Late-night hosts devoted entire monologues to the implosion. Even apolitical influencers jumped on the trend, sharing reaction videos and memes. On campus, the impact was immediate and severe. The Young Republicans Club, which had ballooned under Barron's leadership, saw membership plummet by more than half. Former supporters voiced their sense of betrayal. "I actually believed in him," one student said on a viral TikTok. Turns out he didn't even believe in himself. Professors debated the ethical implications in class. Was Barron a symptom of a broken system, or just another cynical opportunist? Academic panels sprang up overnight, with students demanding higher standards of honesty and accountability from campus leaders. Georgetown's administration issued a carefully worded statement about the importance of integrity in public discourse. Behind closed doors, administrators worried about the university's reputation and the precedent set by such a high-profile implosion. 3 days after the debate, Barron's legal team released a statement. The recording played by Congresswoman Crockett was taken out of context and represents a private conversation recorded without my knowledge or consent. My political positions are sincerely held, and I stand by my critique of Congresswoman Crockett's record. This attack on my character is exactly the kind of political theater I've been working to reform. Social media was merciless. Users pointed out the irony. Barron complaining about political theater after being caught admitting his own act was pure theater. Hashtags like Berliner, Pot Kettle Black, and Theatergate trended for days. Jasmine Crockett, meanwhile, became a national sensation. Her congressional office reported a 400% increase in donations within a week. Her social media following exploded by over 200,000. Democratic leadership floated her name as a rising star, hinting at possible Senate runs and prominent committee assignments. In interviews, Crockett remained focused on the bigger picture. This wasn't about destroying a young man, she told CNN. It was about exposing the cynical manipulation that too often passes for political discourse. Voters deserve leaders who actually believe in what they're fighting for. Political analysts called it a turning point. The recording exposed what many suspected but rarely saw proven, that some politicians view their positions as strategic choices, not principled stands, said Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a political scientist at American University. When young people see political leadership as performance art, it undermines the entire democratic process. Even late-night comedy couldn't resist. SNL opened with a skit lampooning Barron's brand-building strategy, while The Daily Show dubbed it the greatest cell phone in political history. Donald Trump's response was notably muted. Instead of his trademark Twitter tirades, he issued a short statement. Barron is young and learning. Fake news media loves to attack my family. The absence of a full-throated defense spoke volumes. 6 months later, the aftershocks continued. Barron Trump withdrew from public life. His planned course on conservative political philosophy was quietly canceled due to lack of enrollment. On campus, he became a ghost, no longer the center of attention, but a cautionary tale whispered about in hushed tones. The journalism student who recorded the infamous conversation, Jaime Martinez, eventually came forward. I wasn't trying to trap him, Martinez explained in an interview. He just started being really candid about the difference between what he believed privately and what he said publicly. I felt like students had a right to know who they were really supporting. The debate sparked nationwide conversations about privacy, journalistic ethics, and the line between public and private personas. But most agreed. Once Barron chose to attack Crockett's fitness for office, his own fitness became fair game. Crockett's debate performance became required viewing in political communication classes across the country. The way she stayed calm under attack, prepared her counterpunch perfectly, and used the moment to make larger points about political integrity became a textbook example of effective political combat. If you think this level of exposure is exactly what American politics needs, drop a like and share this video. And let us know in the comments, did Barron get what he deserved, or was this a step too far? But let's get real. This was never just about a single debate. This was about the fragility of power when confronted with the truth. Barron Trump made the classic mistake. He underestimated his opponent, thinking his name and intellect would shield him from accountability. He paid the price, in real time, in front of the nation. Why did Crockett's final blow land so hard? Because it exposed the dirty secret at the heart of modern politics. For too many, it's all theater. It's not about conviction or service. It's about branding, outrage, and manipulating audiences for personal gain. Barron's arrogance blinded him. He thought he could control the narrative, that he could say anything and walk away untouched. But Crockett came prepared. She didn't just defend herself, she flipped the script, using his own words to reveal the rot beneath the surface. This wasn't just a humiliation. It was a warning shot to every politician who thinks they can fake their way to power. When the mask slips, when the receipts come out, the consequences are brutal. For Barron, the fallout was career-defining. His reputation as a prodigy, a future leader, was shattered overnight. The trust he'd built on campus evaporated. Even his family's legendary spin machine couldn't save him. For Jasmine Crockett, the moment was transformative. She didn't just survive a public attack, she emerged as a symbol of courage and authenticity. Her willingness to confront cynicism head-on inspired a new generation of voters and activists. Donations poured in. National media hailed her as a rising star. Political science classes studied her debate as a masterclass in strategy and principle. But the lesson goes deeper. This confrontation forced America to reckon with uncomfortable truths about our political culture. When leaders treat public service as performance art, when they see voters as marks instead of citizens, democracy itself is endangered. The recording was more than a gotcha moment. It was a mirror held up to the entire system. It challenged us to demand more from those who seek power, to insist on honesty, integrity, and real conviction. In the end, authenticity wins. Voters can sense the difference between performance and principle. And when the stakes are highest, the truth has a way of breaking through, even if it takes a viral bombshell to do it. 2 years later, in a rare interview, Barron Trump reflected on the incident. It was a wake-up call about the difference between politics as performance and politics as service. I learned that if you're going to enter public life, you better make sure your private beliefs align with your public positions, because eventually the truth comes out. Whether this represented genuine growth or just another calculated move remains to be seen. But for Jasmine Crockett, the victory was complete. She had exposed political cynicism, defended her own integrity, and provided a masterclass in how to handle political bullies. The recording that changed everything did more than destroy one young man's ambitions. It reminded America what authentic political leadership looks like. If you believe politics should be about truth, not theater, hit subscribe. Because we're just getting started exposing the games behind the headlines. So what did we witness tonight? More than a debate, more than a viral moment. We saw the power of preparation, the strength of authenticity, and the absolute devastation that comes when cynicism is dragged into the light. Barron Trump thought he could play the game, manipulate the crowd, and walk away untouchable. Instead, he got demolished, exposed by his own words, outmaneuvered by a Congresswoman who refused to back down. Jasmine Crockett didn't just defend herself, she gave America a lesson in what real leadership looks like. She reminded us that courage, honesty, and conviction still matter, that the truth, when spoken boldly, is the most powerful weapon in politics. But what do you think? Did Barron Trump deserve what happened? Can he ever recover from this political disaster, or is his future finished? Drop your opinion in the comments right now. We want to hear from you. And if you want to keep seeing power confronted, hypocrisy exposed, and political bullies brought to justice, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. The next bombshell could drop any day, and you won't want to miss it. Share this video with anyone who needs to see what real accountability looks like. Because in an era of political theater, moments like this remind us what democracy is supposed to be. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, because the next reckoning is always just around the corner.